Welcome back to another episode of The Gas Up, where we discuss business and entrepreneurial topics through the lens of pop culture. Don't forget to follow us on social media at The Gas Up Podcast and check out the website, thegasupshow.com. On today's show, Remy and Case talk about life inside the NBA bubble and predictions for the NBA championship, the return of sports. They double down on their debate between YouTube and podcasts, the political implications behind reopening schools, Case's tip of the day, be ready to be ready, and Remy talks about customer-focused sales and the dying art of customer service. Episode 4 of the Gas Up Podcast starts now.
Coming to you live through the power of the interwebs. It's Joe, it's John, it's the Gas Up Pod Show. How you doing, Joe?
Showcast, PodTube. I'm doing good, man. Let's drop our new social handles, which is at the Gas Up Podcast. So you can find us on all social channels at the Gas Up Podcast, Insta, Twitter, and you're the
Facebook.
Social media.
Yeah, Facebook. So at the Gas Up Podcast, and we were able to secure Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. LinkedIn is coming, folks. Be ready for that.
LinkedIners, you premium LinkedIn members. I have questions for you. Is it worth it? I need to
know. Before we get to the deep end of this, as always, I'm your host, John Case. With me is Joe Remillet. Remy, how are things going for you?
Good, man. It's been a great week. It's been a busy week, which we're all lucky to be able to say these days with things shutting back down. So I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to record the 4th installment of our complete show. A lot has happened over the past week. It was a big week for the show. It was a big week for the podcast launch. So we now have a podcast, an actual podcast.
Podcast.
Instead of just alluding to one or saying we have a podcast. But
or promising you that it's coming down the road.
We actually have a podcast now. So we haven't pushed it out to all mediums yet. I was able to get it on SoundCloud and Spotify. For the time being. So for all you big Spotify users, you can, while you're cruising down the street, you can check out our first shows up. And by the time this airs, probably at least 2 shows will be up. So you'll have
I think we'll have 2 or 3. By the time it's all said and done. Guys, also, I got to give props to my co-host here. He went on a little bit of a bender the other day, and out of nowhere, we have an actual working website. So if you guys want to catch us on the website, you can, the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebook. But if you actually want to go to the official Gas Up website, it's thegasupshow.com.
That's right.
You guys can find us there. And we're going to make it available on, we'll put some information in the description. The description gets longer and longer with each additional show. As we add more and more components, all of a sudden that description is actually starting to get filled out quite nicely beyond just a little caption of what the particular episode might be about on any given day.
As promised, we're learning, growing, and making mistakes in front of your very eyes. So we appreciate you early followers following along on the journey. And for those who are going back in time and watching things archived, we also appreciate that you cared enough to go back in time.
To actually go back.
And watch us suck progressively less, hopefully every episode.
Right. Ideally, I mean, if anything, you can check out the plant.
The plant. I got questions about the plant. The plant's become the third leg of the
host.
tripod.
Yeah, the third host. Yeah.
So
an active participant.
I have no comparison shot to look at, but it seems like it's doing great on my left, the viewer's left, if you will.
Yeah.
It's really filling in over there. It's really exciting to see the plant grow with the show.
So you asked me, what was it? Maybe one show ago, what we were doing or what I was doing.
Yeah.
I heard through the grapevine that if you put orange peels in it, I guess it provides nutrients or something. I don't know. It was kind of like a information being fed down the line. And so I did that, and now that's kind of what it looks like now. So continuing to feed it, water it. It's my first attempt at keeping anything alive that is of the plant variety. So hopefully we'll continue to see it grow and thrive. I think at some point you can't see it, and we're actually getting way too deep into this, but there's actually 2 different plants growing in there.
Okay, you got a little volunteer plant
exactly.
in there?
So we're going to have to maybe do a little bit of a
it's like a beta.
Separate.
You can't have 2 in one bowl. They're going to kill each other.
Exactly. So man, we'll keep you guys updated. So if you do go back into those archives, you'll see the beginnings of where the plant started, and hopefully, by the end, we have a full-grown tree back there on top of my printer.
Once it blasts through the roof, we know we've made it, right?
Exactly. Well, tell me about your week. It's been a while since we did this. I was telling you before we even started recording, I was excited. It's been a while since we have actually gotten a chance to catch up, to rap about not just putting the show together, but everything going on. So give me a little bit of what happened to you this week.
Yeah, so I think things are picking up for me as a business, and some of my partners are kind of, growing either accidentally or on purpose alongside me. So a lot of kind of client customer interaction this week, which can be, it's funny how kind of tired that makes you, right? Anybody who's been in the customer service industry or in hotels, we used to call it our customer service face is broken, right? Like, it's like you get to a certain point in the day where, I liken it to being at Disneyland when you work in a hotel. Like, as soon as you come out from backstage, you have to be perfect. You have to embody that character.
Right.
And in a luxury hotel, that character is, a luxury high-end customer first individual. And so we would come into the office after a 4-hour run on the floor, and we'd be like, oh, my customer service face is broken. I need some time. Don't talk to me. I'm going in my office. I'm listening to Tupac, and I'm throwing a ball against the wall for 30 minutes so I can
you got to decompress, because dealing with people is not easy, right? Dealing with emotions and ideas, expectations. There's a whole kind of can of worms that comes with the person.
Now we have a name for it. It's called Karen. Everyone says, you're being a Karen. So we didn't have that back then, but now that we have a nice, neat bucket to place all those in, everyone at a luxury hotel is a Karen for the most part. But a good week, another positive week. I have a lot of great energy going around the projects I'm working on. I'm super excited to be involved in all of them, and they kind of keep continuing to get more elaborate and interesting. And part of the beauty of it is, like, we don't know where this is going as far as like some of the stuff I'm working on. There's a lot of hooks in the water. We hope that one or all of them hit, hopefully not at the same time, but that's kind of the when you're in business, you kind of throw a lot of hooks out there, and if they all hit at once, you're like, hey, oh, damn, that's a good problem to have. But now we got to like spool up something that we, obviously aren't currently prepared for. So that's kind of the situation I'm in with a couple of my clients. I'm just hoping that they all kind of hit at a fruitful time for everybody. But what about you, man? How's things looking on your side?
Dude, things really well, actually. It's interesting how things have progressed since everything happened with the pandemic, COVID, all that, because I don't know if this has happened to you. I think I might be in the minority. I don't know. But in my mind, like, my mind state kind of more or less stayed in like April. And it's taken me a minute to really fully grasp the fact that, like, dude, it's full on summer. It's like we're in the middle of July right now, based on how things kind of stalled, and then all of a sudden got propelled big time with regards, at least with the business, if you will, because all of a sudden interest is high. Things are definitely moving. And so a lot of the clients are coming out of the woodwork, folks who previously thought that the bottom was coming out from under everything and everything was going to fall. And so they put things on pause, but now it's been 4 months. And so they're ready to kind of come back in and participate. And it's been good, man. It's been really, really good. It's I'm curious to see what'll happen as we head into the election, into the fall and then into the election, as to how everything shakes up. But at least right now, things are good. I cannot complain. As a matter of fact, I was telling you last week, we had to postpone shooting because I was out on a couple of days of like day-long excursions looking for properties, like clients that are really eager to get into something. And so we're looking in every nook and cranny to, whatever might be available for them. So, definitely looking good. And I'm eager to see what the future brings. It's definitely interesting. New procedures on everything, from entering the properties to documentation that the agents require before you even get in, making appointments, all that stuff. So kind of just becoming part of the norm at this point, and kind of understanding the reality of the situation that we're facing, and doing our best to overcome it. So yeah, it's so far so good. I'm curious to see how things develop as we head into the rest of the year.
By the way, happy tax week, everybody. It's tax week. By the time this airs, it'll be probably the tail end of it. But if you're like me and you procrastinated till this week to do your taxes, you probably didn't have any fun doing it, because anybody that was going to get any money back would have done this, either before the pandemic or during the pandemic. So if you did your taxes this week, that was like me, then you're probably not very happy about the fact that it's tax week. But we got through it, and we'll make better decisions next year.
It was interesting that they, even with the delay, I still ended up waiting to the last minute to do it.
Yeah.
But
because what fun is it to do it early? That's not fun.
Yeah, especially when you owe money, especially
Right.
when at the end of the day, you're going to have to end up paying some. It's kind of like, well, let me make sure I got my math right. Let me make sure I did carry that one. Do I really owe that much?
Right.
And, but even then, by the way, I was watching the news, and they're like, if you still need an extension, if you still need an extension, you can still go ahead and make sure that you file it by, I think it was yesterday. And they're like, if you do owe money, you have to make sure you pay a good amount of upfront before you start getting penalties and things like that.
And then your payment plan is an extension to an extension. So I mean, as far as I could tell, nobody that did their taxes this week got a ton of money back. But I don't know, maybe there's someone out there that's like, I'm going to wait and then get my money from the government if they have any left on.
They're like, woo,
on July 15th.
Making it rain, baby, yeah.
Pretty sure if you were getting money back, you didn't wait till July anything. But anyway, happy tax week, everybody. I'm going to go a little lightning round with you because I have some topics on the board that I want to talk about. That aren't really segments, but it just sounds like a cool little. Let's just rip through these. So,
all right, let's do it.
How are you up on the NBA bubble? Because this is intriguing to me, right? With everything going on right now, I think it's the only sport for me that I actually care about starting this season, restarting the season. I'm a hockey guy. I'm a baseball guy. NASCAR is getting worse and worse by the second for me. NBA bubble's intriguing. I think they're doing it about as well as they can, but like. Give me a hot take on the bubble. What do you think? You think it's working? You think it's going to happen? You think this blows up in their face? What are you hearing about it?
I think that, yes, they're going to go through with it. I think it's going to be what we're seeing in California. Honestly, I think California is kind of a perfect example of what's happening. They're going to start it. They're going to get it going. They're going to inevitably come up against some things. They might have to pause for a second, and they're going to try to get through. They're going to try to get through it anyway.
They're going to crown a champion. Your prediction is that they get to the championship and some champion is crowned. And who do you think that'll be? Any takes on who you think it'll be?
I really think, barring anything crazy happening, I really think Bron's gotta pull out
Lakers.
He has to do. This is like this would be title 3.5 or 3-A or however you want to see it, because this is more of like a tournament win. You know what I mean?
We'll see though. Like, how much is it worth in the end? I think it's too early to say. Because they had a significant. Their seeding is based on what they've done so far, and that's undeniable, right? I mean, the Lakers were far and away the best team in the West when the season ended. You can't take that away from them if they're the number 1 seed. But yeah, how do these playoffs look and feel? Are there teams that are decimated by COVID to the fact that you're only playing half the team?
Correct.
I'm really intrigued by the Trailblazers of all teams. I think that team could really get in there and do something, because they had 2 guys. I mean, they're out of the playoff situation right now. They had to win a ton of games just to get in.
I'd say that's going to be
win
that's
out
a lot of
just
weight
to get the play-in game. But they have Nurkic back. They have Zach Collins back. Dame is he's emerged as one of the best point guards, if not the best in the game. I'm scared of the Blazers if I'm the Lakers. If they get the 1-8 matchup, I think the Blazers could knock off the Lakers. I think it's Giannis and the Bucks to lose at this point. They're young. They got fresh legs.
Oh, really? So I was going to ask you your favorite. So you think the favorite are the Bucks?
I think the Bucks, because of their age and their depth. Although I just saw Eric Bledsoe got diagnosed with COVID-19 today, so
that's what I'm saying. And Westbrook as well. I think this is gonna be inevitable. I think it's one of those.
I think that, by the way, they brought way too many teams in the bubble. 22 teams in this bubble is ridiculous. They probably should have brought no 16? More than 16, 12 16, maybe. There was really. I'm a Mavs fan. Mavs would have been the 7 seed, so I would have been pissed if they went 12, because it would have been 6-6, and the Mavs would have been bounced. But you could have made an argument that maybe the Mavs were better than any 6 seed in the East and thrown them in there. I don't know. I think 12 was the right number. 22 is definitely not the right number, but there's a ton of dudes in this bubble. The Wizards should have backed out already. They have no chance to do anything. They can't even make the playoff. But anyway, the food was a trending topic on day 1 and
Fire
2.
Fest, you mean?
The Fire Fest sequel at the Disney Fairgrounds over there. But then it seemed to get better. The NBA telling players not to live Facebook Live or Instagram.
They're telling
Live.
to stop.
Of course, it was J.R. Smith. Immediately doesn't even play a game and already gets in trouble. So perfect. So I'm the most intrigued by far about the NBA than any other sport. honestly, I think baseball is probably.
So that was going to be my question. I was going to turn it on its head and ask you. So baseball starting back up. They're talking about golf.
Baseball.
The Fight Island has been on and popping. So UFC's been going. Probably, I think UFC was the first, and they continue to put on shows. I think I mentioned baseball, basketball. So having
no one's really talking about hockey.
Yeah,
MLS has started.
Out of the fact that there was no sports for like 4 months or something to that effect. Now that sports are being reintroduced, is your interest waned? Now that you haven't been, it hasn't been part of your life, is it something that you're looking forward to at all? Or are you kind of over it and now it's like you said, it's just basketball and that's kind of it?
For me, it is. I mean, I have a lot going on in my life right now. Sports will always be important to me. They'll always be, one of my dream professions was to be a sportscaster. So I'll never like turn it off. But I mean, I watched like a half an MLS game when they first started playing games again. Wasn't intrigued. No fans. Weird. And when they score a goal, they don't know whether to hug or fist bump or dick bump or whatever. So
I don't recommend that last one.
No, yeah. I mean, the Cubs were doing it when they won the World Series. So it's the thing. I mean, I don't know. Hockey might be cool, but they're not really hyping hockey up very much.
Not at all. I didn't even know that was going on. I'll be honest.
Well, it hasn't started yet. It's on the same timeline as the NBA, give or take 1 or 2 days. Yeah, I mean, the NBA is just right now. It's all I really want to see. I mean, I don't even care if they play any baseball games this year, and that's sad to say. I mean, football is only intriguing for me to see, like, what this season looks like. Can we have fans? Like, that's the big thing sitting out there for football.
Did you hear about college football playing conference only? So like less.
Yeah, I don't think college football is going to happen. I think they're in the same boat as baseball. These guys don't even get paid, man. What's my motivation as a player to go back to my campus and when my campus probably isn't even doing face-to-face instruction and go play football for no money? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't, that's a tough one for me. I don't think it's going to happen. I think for me, sports have gone to the background significantly, and I think they'll stay there for a while.
Wow. Okay.
And that's crazy for me to say because, I was clicked onto everything in January, February. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. Like I try to watch sports, but I'm not feeling golf. NASCAR was flash in the pan with the Bubba stuff. Now they're like, NASCAR is so greedy for views right now. It's disgusting. Like they're broadcasting all their little backstage fights and people talking crap on
going WWE style. Like,
there was like a little skirmish in the pits and they put it on all their social media.
Let me tell you something, brother.
I was like, you guys are so sad. Like, it's so disgusting. So I'm done with NASCAR, honestly. Like, golf is cool, but without the roars and the Masters and Tiger winning big tournaments, with Tiger's playing in a tournament this weekend, so that's intriguing. If Tiger could make a run this weekend, he might be able to get me back in the golf game.
There you go. Pull you right back in, son.
I'm not intrigued by Bryson DeChambeau and some no-name Canadian dudes winning tournaments that don't matter. So I wanted to bring up the debate, and I don't even think I prepped you on this, but the debate between YouTube versus podcasts, right? We did a little bit of research this week on this. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm dropping this on you like cold, so I hope it works out.
Let's do this.
So we've gone toe to toe on this pretty much the whole time.
From the jump, by the way, from the very first conversation. and I think both of us have heard, because we've only been on YouTube from inception, and we're just now branching out to podcasts and podcasting, and we're still in the nascent stages of that. Right.
So my whole thing word. Yeah, there you go. Little.
I like that. I like
SAT action there. I got a 600 on my verbal on my SAT. So I was a unicorn male, with the decent
with the vocab, with the vocab,
with the vocals. So so I think everyone knows where I come out on this. I was a podcast proponent. I was an audio only proponent. I came to you were able to lawyer me up and convince me to go
use that YouTube. Influence on you.
And now we've migrated. Yeah, you honeyed the shit out of me. And now we've kind of migrated back to both, really. And our website is like a good backdrop because you can get it anywhere.
You can do both, right? Exactly.
So once again, www.thegasupshow.com. Check out the website. It has both the podcast and the YouTube channel, and it's got embeds. And you can just click right from there and watch our stuff.
Plug.
But so how do you feel about this debate now? Are you still wholly in the same camp? I mean, I know you consume things through YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm kind of more of a podcast only consumer. Have you migrated back to the middle? Where are you at on this right now?
I think for the are you okay? Quick question: am I talking as the creator now,
Overall,
or
yeah, as the
overall?
creator,
As the creator,
overall, not how you consume it, but how do you think the show should be
I think as a creator now,
focused?
we have to be everywhere, bro. We have to be omnipresent. Like you have to have the pod. Like I've taken a short survey of our subscribers. Thank you guys out there, all of you who have taken the time to subscribe. Don't forget to like and comment. The folks, there are folks in a camp that are YouTube only.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they get all their stuff. And I have migrated to that camp over time as YouTube has kind of grown market share and now has access to all a variety of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I originally started as audio only. So back in like early, what is it, like 08, 9, and 10, I would actually have the iTunes set up to download my favorite podcast. I would hook up my iPod, download them, and so it was basically audio only for the longest time.
Jim Rome, Have a Take, Don't Suck. I
All
was
that.
heavy into that game in college. On the bus going around campus listening to Jim Rome.
And I was, even back then I was listening. So for example, I would listen to legal podcasts. I would listen to Rogan. And there was all these kind of like fledgling things because people did. Bill Simmons.
That's a good word, fledgling. Yeah. Nice word. Nice retort.
So there was kind of like, it was kind of in its infancy, right? A lot of people didn't even know what a podcast was.
Yeah.
And so, but slowly over time, it started to become such a hassle of trying to figure out where they were coming from and when they were getting uploaded. When especially when all of a sudden, when unlimited data became a thing, and now I could be on YouTube all day if I wanted to. I wasn't necessarily relegated to just a couple of hours or Wi-Fi or whatnot. Now, the one thing that I will say, which you brought up an excellent point, and you kind of reiterated again right now, if you don't have Wi-Fi, it can be an issue. The YouTube doesn't really work when you don't have the Wi-Fi.
So or if you don't plan on plugging your phone in anytime soon,
and you can drain your battery. Correct. Yeah.
I think I found the dividing line in this argument. I was talking to my best friend on the phone today, and he was like, "Dude, I want to watch your show, but I haven't had time to. Like, I have it bookmarked, but you got 3 episodes in the can. I haven't watched any of them." And I was like, "Thanks for the support, buddy.
Just any one of them, pick one. It doesn't matter."
But I think that he's in the same boat I would be if he had a show. I just don't watch YouTube like that. So once again, it's back to this whole and so he has 2 kids, and I think I found the dividing line is people with kids. Like, I think it's harder for people with kids to consume YouTube than it is a podcast. Like, the way I explained it to him is I'm more likely to be in my car driving somewhere
where you could utilize it, right?
And listening to a podcast that I will then, like, they call it driveway time, where you're like into radio that you just sit in your driveway and consume the rest of the show or the rest of the segment, even though you're home and you could go home, or even though you're at your business and you could walk in. That's like the golden, when radio's really working, it's called driveway time. Like, you're so good that even though you're done with your journey, you're still listening. I would do that with a podcast. So I would like a podcast so much that I would put my earphones in and walk in the house or go outside and work in the garden and continue to listen to it. But I don't think I would do that with YouTube. If I was really into something, I would just pause it and then I would do whatever I'm doing. And then maybe I'd come back, maybe I wouldn't. So I think it's easier to consume podcasts. And as a parent, when you're a parent, it's like you're always on the clock. Like, you can't even take a shower without yelling out, like, "Hey, I'm going to take a shower." Like, make sure that, our kid
stay alive.
Yeah. In the next 15 minutes or whatever. So
don't do anything too crazy. I'll be right back.
I think that's the dividing line, is like, people that don't have kids probably would consume it more on YouTube, and people that do probably would consume it more on podcasts. So I'm glad that we're in both. I'm glad that this is
I think we have to be in both.
Continuing debate, but I'm also glad that now we're on both platforms. And eventually you'll be able to consume the entirety of the show on both platforms. Right now, everything's kind of going up first on YouTube, and we're catching up a little bit on the podcast.
On the podcast side.
So look out for Apple. That's in the near future. Look out for Google. Google has a podcast platform, and there's so many more that we can tap into. But we're already on Spotify and SoundCloud, like I said. But I wanted to bring that up because that's always a fun debate to have, of like, what which one's better. By the way, some stats on that: 31 million YouTube channels, and over 1 million, almost 2 million now, podcasts out there. So it's a 30-to-1 ratio.
So actually, okay, so then podcast is still more if you're trying to break through, all the noise, I guess podcast is the way to go versus, I guess the thing too is, and I think we're living it. This is so much easier than, you just set it up, start recording, start talking.
Well, to have a YouTube channel, you really could just have a phone. But to have a podcast that's of the caliber of notable podcasts, you actually have to do more work, right? Like you have to have microphones, you have to have editing software, you have to have modulation, you have to have some sort of time to devote to, RSS feeds and keeping up with all that stuff. So honestly, at YouTube, you could just point the phone at yourself and jump off a freaking mountain and then, get a million views. Like if you're in the viral space, you can actually do really well just jumping on top of a McDonald's tray and having your friend drag you behind the street and getting views like that. It's very possible that could be a high hit rate video. Now it's not going to be a highly monetized video because as a buyer, if you're trying to advertise to people who are watching that video, like who are they? Like what demographic are they in? Who do they have any money for anything? Like we don't know. So the monetization of YouTube is obviously much more powerful because of the reach, because there's 31 plus million channels, which means there's billions of subscribers and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's always going to be an interesting debate, and I think it's going to be a recurring theme where we're going. The other thing I want to talk about is this whole, how do we figure out the school, like the public school system right now? Talking about an argument for people with kids. So I'm coming at this from two perspectives, and I want to bring you in on so I'll kind of riff on the what does it mean for my family, and then you can riff on the economic impact of it, because I think it's important to note that there's really two sides to this, right? And you could see there's a lot of politicizing this right now of, well, we need to get kids back in schools, right? That's like the prevalent argument that's going on right now. But the undertones of that are twofold. One is people actually care about learning and development in kids, right? That's like the should be the primary part, but I'm not even going to go so far as to say it is.
Agreed.
The second part is, if we don't get these damn kids back in school, we can't restart our economy, around the country. So, and I think that's actually a little bit more prevalent than anyone's willing to admit. So I see it as a two-part argument. The first one is almost impossible to solve because it's a moving target of like, how the hell do we even do this? Like what surges are we going to see? It's like an NBA bubble situation. Like we could have the perfect plan and it's never going to
work, right?
It's never going to work out the way we planned it. The only difference is those are guys making $20 million a year and these are kids. And so we can, it's a little easier to play with the lives of people who are adults and they're saying, I'll go make my $20 million a year to go into this bubble. And obviously there's not enough funding to do what the NBA is doing, testing every day and all that stuff. So, as a parent, it's a high anxiety moment for parents, because it's like, we want our kids to go back to school because there's a lot of value in that. And as somebody with a 6-year-old son, this is a crucial year in his life, in his development, to be around his peers, to be motivated by his, scholastic, whether it's a field trip or even recess. Like, for our son, it's like, we just want him to go play and have fun and be a normal kid. And, he's obviously at no risk to him, ideally, or very little. So the anxiety around that is going to be prevalent and constant for a while. But my question is, how much do we care about this economy at this point? Like, are we going to send kids back to school just to create an elaborate daycare so people can restart the economy? Does that matter to anybody? Because let's not bullshit it. Like, that's what it is, right? The big push, especially from certain political assignments out there, is we don't really care about the kids. Let's just get parents back to their jobs. And the only way they can get two parents back to their jobs and create more cogs in the wheel is to get these kids somewhere, whether it's a daycare, whether it's a school. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, is that a legitimate?
Well, I got a third. Yeah, I think there is, and I'm gonna put you on the spot and throw a monkey wrench your way, and we'll address your questions in a second. But something to think about is, what about the teachers? Like, yeah, the kids may be not at risk, but aren't, like, a majority of teachers are, call it between 30 and 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have these folks that are in and around, and kids do get it, right? They can get they can get sick, not necessarily sick, but they can spread the illness. Maybe not
just like you and I,
right, exactly,
same level, yeah.
And so just something to think about, right? Doubling back to your question, I find it, I don't have kids, so I always feel a little sort of on edge as far as trying to speak about something where in essence anybody can point to and say, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, John, you don't have kids. So let's put that on the table. But
we don't care. Said, we just speak our mind. We don't care.
But that being said, I do think that there is, I think folks are realizing just how much of our economy is tied into having kids go to school so that you have parents that can go to work. And all of a sudden, because one of the things I was talking to somebody else about is at the end of the day, I mean, they're your kids. Aren't you responsible for them? Not just from 6 to midnight or the next day, but like all day, every day.
But those same parents will turn around and sue a school district when their kid gets COVID because
I'm just like I said, I'm just looking at it from the perspective of like, if those are your children, then they're your children 24/7. Now you get the benefit of having a system that provides you free schooling, which then in turn gets utilized as free daycare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, quasi-free. I mean, we still pay taxes. We still contribute to our taxes and municipalities and all that.
I'm saying free in the sense of like there's not a bill at the end of the month unless you go to private school or something.
It's
otherwise,
not an additional.
Exactly. So it's kind of baked into the system. So I think that this is highlighting some of the realities of parenthood, right? If you didn't have schools, or if you did do homeschooling or some other alternative, this is showing you the reality of what it's like to really be a parent 24/7. And I think a lot of folks are kind of like, whoa, like I thought once they got to a certain age, I can let them
We're
go.
not very good at it, at being parents 24/7. We were only really good at being parents from like 5:30 p.m.
till
like
8 midnight,
9.
and then we reconvene in the morning.
Yeah, we go back
6
to
in the
being
morning.
selfish assholes for the rest of the day.
So
no, I think what you just said brought up two kind of new points in my mind. One of them is, so I'm really good at remembering like numbers and percentages and stuff. So I remember seeing, as I'm scrolling through all these school district posts, I remember seeing a stat that 35% of the personnel in our school district, which is Redlands Unified, is over 50 years old, which is like, once again, like that's COVID demographic.
That's COVID demo.
That's the thing that the virus feasts on the most, right?
Yep.
So 35% is an insanely significant amount of I'm not going to say elderly, but the higher end, people that suffer from it the most.
Correct.
So that's an alarming number. And the second thing that you made me think of that I've already had the thought on, because I know a lot of teachers and they're being very vocal right now on social media, like this is their time to shine and step up and say whatever they want to say, which is, it's pretty unanimous. Like they're like, we're not ready to go back.
A lot of teachers don't want to go back. No, exactly.
We can do the same thing. I mean, we could just bring our A game on Zoom this year instead of whatever the hell happened last year when everyone was trying to figure it out on the fly, or Google Classroom or whatever you want to call it. But this is another, like, these people are underpaid as hell. Like you just mentioned it, like this is our free daycare, quote unquote. And we're trusting our kids, like more than half of our children's day is spent with their educator or a group of educators. And still everyone's okay with these people getting paid like $35,000 to $50,000 in their first few years as a teacher. Like it's only till you get a master's degree and 10 years of experience where you actually have a nice paycheck as a teacher for all the work it is, for all the heavy lifts that you have to do emotionally with families and kids, and the time spent in and out of the classroom grading papers and guiding our children to
our youth better.
Right. Yeah, our youth, the next wave, whatever we're going to call these
the next generation
of people. It's just another highlight that these people don't make enough money. And I've already gone on record with my theory of why they don't make a lot of money. And I think it's true, but yeah, they're underpaid. And now we're like, go get your $50,000 a year ass back to work so that we could restart our economy. Not complaining, but like, there's certain people that feel like just shut up and go back and, grade papers. And I'm glad that a lot of them are like, no, this is not go back to work. It's a freaking pandemic and everyone else is sitting the bench. Why aren't we allowed to sit the bench in this critical moment? I think that was a quiet argument in the summer because we wouldn't have school anyway. So nobody was really bitching about it, but now it's,
well, I mean, we both know teachers, and I've had conversations with several folks, and they've flat out said, like, I don't want to go back, not while this thing is still kind of out there. And at the end of the day, I don't know, if I have, 25 kids and they're, this is a high school teacher, for example, 25 kids, and they're changing every hour I get a new set of kids, and that's a totally new parameter of unknowns, right? Who they were out with, if they were hanging out with their friends, if their families adhere to the social distancing and the mask, or if their family thinks that it's a hoax or whatever it is. And all of a sudden you're bringing that in here, and now you're exposing me to that on a daily basis. So like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be involved in that. Yeah. And so I think it's a very complicated issue because, to your point, a lot of people do use school as a means to keep the kids occupied and allow them to do their, their work.
It's so obvious now, right? It was like, it almost was unspoken until we got to this point in March when everything shut down. It was like,
oh wait, I have to have my kid. I have to have the kid at home all day.
Yeah, we gotta do this for like the foreseeable future. We're screwed. Like, so it was so obvious now. I got to take a break to turn on the light. So what do you want to talk about today, man? What are you feeling? What excites you?
Well, it was funny as we were kind of putting the show together and we were kind of going back and forth. At the beginning, I was struggling with, what can we talk about, or what can we think about that, or what kind of discourse can we have that's kind of relevant to what's going on. And as I was kind of mulling things over, kind of thinking about it, all of a sudden this idea popped into my head of being ready to be ready. And all
what
of a sudden,
what does that mean? How do you define that in your space?
Exactly. Okay. So, and by the way, this is applicable kind of across the board. So we can maybe get into a more general application in a little bit, but as we're unpacking this, the idea of being ready to be ready is simply being in sort of a mental state that then promotes you being proactively taking other actions so that when an opportunity presents itself, you can capitalize on it. That's the idea of being ready to be ready, right? So the idea is most people will try to wait bringing it back to the taxes, right? Most people will wait until something absolutely has to get done before you take any type of action, right? But if you're ready to be ready, you're more in line of, I know there's an opportunity coming my way. You kind of already expect it. You kind of already know that something is heading your way. That's the mind state that you're operating from. And so what you want to try to do is coordinate your activities to be in congruence with that. So the idea, and it goes beyond just like positive energy. It goes beyond just like simply like positive thinking. It's more along the lines of, for example, with this podcast, like I didn't really know this opportunity was going to come up. Like the reality was you and I were having a conversation about something totally different. We were talking about your business, you expanding out into your own, becoming an entrepreneur, doing your own thing. And from that sprung up this kind of crazy idea of like, hey man, you ever thought about doing a podcast? Oh, as a matter of fact, I have. I'm thinking about doing my own thing. Oh, well, have you ever thought about maybe doing a show together? Well, oh shit. Well, no, I hadn't, but maybe that's something we can explore, and being open to that, right? So when the opportunity presents itself, then you start to figure out how to get it done. It kind of ties into what we talked about. I think it was episode 1, start where you are with what you got. So the idea is you want to be in a position where you can really capitalize on what's happening. I found a quote too here. Let me read it to you. It says, it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And that was said by Whitney M. Young. And so I think this ready to be ready idea falls in line with that quote. The idea is you want to put yourself in a position where should something come down the road that you can capitalize on, you can take that opportunity, as opposed to being like, oh, damn, well, hopefully I'm ready the next time. And so that could be whether that's like writing that email out to somebody to see if potentially there's a business opportunity there. That could be, doing what's necessary to get yourself in shape. For example, getting that pair of shoes or getting the shorts or signing up for the class, or because you never know what things may come of it. You go to the class, you meet somebody, that person transforms your life, right? All of a sudden you're like, wow, this trainer is amazing. This trainer's really given me information that I'm vibing with. And not only am I vibing with it, I'm actually taking action on it now. They're saying do this, that, and the other. I'm doing it. I'm seeing the results. Boom. But if you weren't in that position to be like, oh, should I take the class or not? No, I don't want to take it. I'm not ready for it. Then all of a sudden, everything that comes from that goes away. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm explaining?
Yeah, I think of it like when you said be ready to be ready, I was thinking like this is how you would jump on a train. Like if there was a train going down the track and you wanted to be on that train for whatever reason, you're going to have to run alongside that train for a while. It's not like you can just go, okay, this train's going 70 miles an hour. I'm just going to stick my arm out and grab onto it.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things. But I feel like in today's uncertain times where like everything is unpredictable and timelines are like, there's there's like a little subplot going on right now of like just complete unpredictable situations that it's much harder to do this because like I was just talking to my buddy in the restaurant business and he was like, so, I recommended to one of my district managers that we go out and take a proactive solution and put plexiglass all over the restaurant so that when people come in, they feel safe and there's barriers and all that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the district manager was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And this was before the governor shut everything down. So they would have spent, $3,000 per store putting up plexiglass walls everywhere. And then their in-store program would have got shut down and they would have basically spent, however many 12 stores times $3,000 per store. So it's almost like that analysis paralysis is working in people's favor right now because making a decision based on what's going on today is often the wrong decision because then tomorrow we get the rug pulled out and it changes the whole game. So how do you kind of get over that? How do you navigate around that in the present day?
That's an excellent question. So for example, what I would think about would be the reality is COVID's not going anywhere. So
that damn COVID.
Damn COVID's not going anywhere. So the reality is at some point I want to open up my restaurant and at some point I want patrons. Mm-hmm. So even if we're and the reality is my estimation is we're going to be open, close. This is unless everybody gets on the same page as to how we're going to tackle this. And that's a topic for another day because we as a community as a whole, we're kind of disjointed in that. The idea being that you take the steps necessary. So for example, something he could do is figure out his cost. Like you don't necessarily have to take the full steps to actually effectively create the barriers and put them up, but you could price it out. Exactly. Yeah. But you could price them out and then you can see which one's more competitive. And then you can, I talked to Joe, I talked to John, I talked to Bobby. Out of the three, I like Bobby the best, but he's the most expensive. Joe seems to be the most reasonable. I think I'm going to go with Joe.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something I'm not really good at. Like there's 10 projects I want to do around the house. What I should be doing in my own time is just getting bids for those projects and just keeping them in the holster. Like, hey, if I happen to come up on this money for this project and it's the next one on the list, I want to know about what I'm spending. I want to know who the most, the best vendor was that I came in contact with. Like, I think that's great advice because I'm terrible at that. Like, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to install a new air conditioner. And now I got to start from zero to try to get this thing put in and it's June and it's about to be 100 degrees. Like that would be me. So that'd be good advice for somebody like me who would wait.
And not just that. So on top of that, if all of a sudden you wait till the last minute, now you may lose valuable time as you implement whatever thing is now allowable to do, right? So hey, we opened everything back up. People are allowed to go back into the restaurants and our restaurant's going to take a little bit longer as we meet whatever. That'd be like saying, I don't want to know what the guidelines will be when we open up because I don't know we're going to open up. So I'm just going to wait. Once we do know that we're opening up, then I'll look at the guidelines.
A lot of businesses are playing it that way right now.
But it's dangerous.
It's like, we're just going to curl up in a ball and wait for somebody to tap us to say it's over. And I don't even want to say that's a bad strategy anymore because I don't even know. Like 2 months ago, I'd have said that's a terrible strategy. I think I've said it on the show, but I don't know anymore, man. I mean, I can't fault people for doing that.
Not at all. So the idea is there's a lot of, so for example, before you even spend $1, there's a lot of legwork. You have to make the phone calls, find out who the people are.
I mean, if you're smart, some people just go one bid, boom, pull the trigger. They don't know what they got. If I'm the bidder and I sense that you're not bidding against me, then I'm going to make some not great decisions potentially based on that, depending on your morality and your business practices. But you gotta bid some stuff out. I mean, I would encourage anybody to look at, if you're going to look at Apple Music, look at Spotify and look at
exactly. Amazon. Well, totally,
right? Don't ever just go straight to the first thing. Do some research. You got the time.
And that goes to the idea,
fast.
Right, exactly. And that goes to the idea of being ready to be ready, right? The idea would be if they give the order for us to open back up, I'm moving. I'm ready to go. I know I'm calling Joe. I'm setting up my appointment. I'm doing everything. Now, I get what you're saying because of, what's funny? One of in some of the personal development courses that I've taken, they say that human beings fall into a variety of categories as to kind of what they're looking for from things. And certainty is one of those things that human beings really crave, a great majority of them. There are some that don't. There's some that like spontaneity and excitement and things like that. But for the most part, a large majority of people want to feel secure that the decision that they're making is quote unquote the right one.
And well, so, certainly in their homes and their jobs and, right, their long-term investments.
But the reality is, I mean, would you say that there's a right way to do things? I think it's just a way. It's just a way. There's no like right and wrong. Like, for example, us doing this. Is there a right way to do this show? Like, we're kind of putting it together as we go along and seeing, like, you know what I mean?
We're definitely not doing it if there is one.
Exactly. So, but you know what I mean? It's not one of those things where I don't think that prevents you from taking those necessary steps. So, with example, bringing it back to our show, one of the things that I thought about, which is why I proposed it to you when we started chatting, was, dude, I found this program, Zoom, that I think would be a great vehicle if we did decide to go through this and follow through and do the show. I think the Zoom program could be at least an initial way for us to get it off the ground.
Right. It's not the way we would have drawn it up, COVID notwithstanding. And
right, exactly.
Other
maybe
things notwithstanding.
Maybe we're in the same studio. So, for example, maybe if there's no COVID, maybe we're in a studio together, right? Or maybe we're doing like a single camera shot, like a traditional show.
But that might come with additional costs and headaches and rent and God knows what else.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this might be the way with or without a pandemic.
Right. And so, and the idea being like capitalizing on what you have available and utilizing that to further your goal. Let me give you another example of being ready to be ready. In my business, one of the key things I tell people to do before they ever start looking at homes. Now, this is when I'm representing you as we can talk about sellers, but let's focus primarily on buyers. When you're a buyer, one of the key things that I tell people to do before you even start looking at homes, because the internet has really opened up Pandora's box of people can just sit at home and kind of look at, realtor.com and Redfin and Zillow. Truly,
they could be like their own little mini realtor before they even
exactly. And so you start looking at these homes, you start to get excited. Pre-COVID, you could even go to open houses on your own and check things out and look at things. And so all of a sudden you start to get excited. You see something that you really like. And now you have to work your way backwards to find out if you actually can afford to purchase that home, right? Or that space. Right. And so,
or what your budget is even, right?
Or even exactly.
Because a total buying price is a component of what you can afford monthly or annually. So if you don't even know where you come in or what some lender will grant you, then how do you even know what size house, what neighborhood, what you can afford?
That's exactly right. Exactly right. No, I tell people the pre-approval or pre-qualification process is going to give us the boundaries that we work with, right? It's going to give us our low end and our high end, and that low end and high end, now we can fill in the blanks of these are the types of properties that we can conceivably look at and help you purchase. And so whether it's a pre-approval or pre-qualification, at the end of the day, they're both a similar process. One's a little more thorough than the other. But the idea is you've taken the steps to be ready should something that you like be available and be ready to jump on it. Because with real estate, one of the hardest things that I had to sort of wrap my head around was real estate waits for nobody. It's not like any other type of consumer good. You know that if you want to buy a television, you can go to Best Buy, or you can go to Sears, you can go to Walmart, and you can kind of price comparison shop. And the Samsung model 123 at Walmart might be a little bit of a variance in price to Best Buy, but at the end of the day, you can buy the same thing for relatively the same price. Yeah. With real estate, it's not like that. And likewise, you know that Walmart's open from, 7 in the morning to 12 at night. And Best Buy's open from 10 a.m. to, 7 or 8 p.m. Real estate, this thing could sell whenever. It could sell on a Monday. It could sell on a Friday. It could sell in the afternoon. It could sell in the middle of the night. Real estate doesn't really sleep. And so wrapping your head around that, I've written offers at 9, 10 o'clock at night. I've sat there and typed up an offer because my client really liked the home. And we knew that if we didn't get something in that day at that time, we weren't going to get it.
Time kills all deals. I love that. I love that thought process. Like time kills all deals. Move.
And the reality is, if you're the listing agent, I'm like, Joe, my clients love the home, man. It's perfect. It faces the right direction. It's got the right size yard. They love the amenities. This thing is awesome. We want this home. And then you're like, sure, John, go ahead and send me an offer. And I'm like, ooh, caveat. We just started the process. And so we haven't actually sat down with a mortgage lender or a broker and figured out how much they can qualify for. And so immediately I'm out of, that's it. I'm done. I'm shot. I'm dead. There's no,
how much of that, from what you just mentioned, how much of a good match when you're selling a home or when you're the listing agent, what does it matter if they're a good family or a good match? Like what percentage does that play into the deal?
Well, what do you mean?
Okay, like what you just said. They're a great family. They love the house. They love how the feng shui is perfect for them.
Yeah.
They got 2 kids and it's got 2 spare bedrooms, whatever. But like, if you're a seller, you're just trying to maximize the amount of money that you walk away with. Who do you care if it goes to 2 nice kids and a dog? You know,
that's so funny that you asked that, because it really, I mean, yes, there are some people that it works like that, but there are legitimately, and I can talk to this because it's happened, there are sellers that really have an affinity to their home, especially if
they want to curate the next journey.
Well, it's not necessarily that they want to curate it, but think about it. If you spend 10, 15, 20 years in a place, there you inevitably grow feelings to it, even though it's an inanimate object, right? It's a structure made of sticks and drywall and glue and whatever. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, you do grow attached to it. And so you want to hand it off to somebody that's going to appreciate it, care for it, look after it like you did. There is the idea of pride of ownership is real. That's why properties look different when an owner takes care of them versus a renter, because inherently the renter, they have no skin in the game. It's just a rental. They know that they're there for a certain period of time and that's it. When you're an owner, you're like, this is mine. This is now all on me. This is my responsibility. And so oftentimes that's reflected in the care and the attention that you paid to the property. And so when you've been in that home for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I'm telling you, I've had it where the seller has pulled me aside and said, look, John, this is especially at the listing appointment when we're talking about kind of what we're looking for and the overall goal that we're trying to achieve. They're like, at the end of the day, we want this home to go to a nice family, in a sense of like, we want somebody who's going to take care of the home, somebody who's going to really appreciate everything that we did for it. Like the hardwood floors weren't any kind of hardwood floors. We had the hardwood floors brought in from XYZ. And the cabinetry isn't like any other cabinetry. We actually had our carpenter that we've known for years. Like there's people that legitimately think like this. Now, is the flip side available too? Of course. There are people who are like, it's a house. I just want maximize my dollars. That's all I care about. But there are people who legitimately are like, man, I'm looking for somebody who's going to carry on this legacy.
So it's a healthy percentage.
Yes. Oh, and here's another one, by the way, and I hate to interrupt, but there is this other component. There are people who are looking for good neighbors for their neighbors.
That's very kind. Because I think I'd be more in the maximize my money camp than I don't really care.
And that's fair.
It's not my problem.
That's totally fair. But for example, if you know that you're living and all of a sudden you've been in this neighborhood for years, your kids grew up here, you knew the neighbors, especially these are like tight-knit neighborhoods where people like legitimately.
Like you might come back and visit the rest of the
correct, because this is simply because you're leaving doesn't mean you're terminating those relationships with the folks. It just means that you're moving on, right? And there are people who legitimately want to have, something along the lines of what was there before. You don't all of a sudden want to bring something or somebody in that completely changes the complexion of the neighborhood as far as, the attention. Like if your lawn was always pristine and you were always the pride of the neighborhood because you always had those roses, and your neighbors got used to that and that was a sense of pride. Well, it'd be a shame if all of a sudden the new neighbor comes in and just cements everything. Like cement as far as the eye can see. I just want cement. I want
rock lawn ready.
Exactly.
I think about that every Christmas because our across the street neighbor we call them the Griswolds because they just go nuts with the decorations. And I'm like, if they ever sell the house, the expectation level for that, for the Christmas decorations is off the charts.
It's off the charts, right?
Nobody will ever they better sell the house with all the shit that goes on it for Christmas. And Halloween, they do everything. Easter, I mean, they're Clark W. Griswold for every single holiday. It's great. Do you need to take a break to water your plant, or you want to keep pressing on?
No, I actually no orange peels, no watering.
You put them down your elbow like Salt Bay, like orange peel bay.
What I did want to ask you about, because we were chatting about this before, was what happened as far. You mentioned it previously, but. Customer service as far as so for example, I pride myself on my customer service. I think as a company, as an organization, our philosophy is customer comes first no matter what. And so we absolutely do. I like to say we offer the Rolls Royce of service.
What the hell is going on with customer service right now is my thing. Like we live in a society where more than ever, we have to compete to win.
Totally. And
when companies get so focused on their product, they forget that there's a human being on the other side of that transaction, and they're so arrogant about it, and you're on their time and nobody ever calls you back. Like, I just don't understand where it went. Like, at what era did we lose? Was it social media that did this? Did we lose customer service in the last recession? Did the pandemic kill it? I know it was already a problem before this year, but I'm grappling with the fact that like when I'm the customer, I'm 90% of the time I'm disappointed in the service level. Even if I'm like, okay, like even if it's a medical thing, right? Like my son has lots of referrals that need to get pushed through for his diagnosis and his doctors and whatever. So like we'll put in a claim for his medicine and they won't get back to us, and we'll call them and they'll have an attitude on the phone, or they'll kick us over to the next person. Like,
Right.
You're getting tons of money for this stuff. Like I mean, whether we're paying out of pocket for it, whether insurance is covering it, whether it's covered in some other, healthcare accounts, why is it so painful for me to get anything done as the customer, as the client these days? And like, I know there's lots of people that are like, we're customer focused, and like, I just don't feel it. Like, I feel like it's a very rare thing. Like, isn't it an art form? Isn't it rare to go to, a restaurant when that was a thing, or
when they existed,
or
when
jump on a
restaurants
phone
existed.
call? Remember restaurants? Isn't it a rare thing to go into one of those situations or call somebody who's like, you like some people you dial, you're like, this person's going to be an asshole. Like I can already tell by the way the damn numbers sound in my ear when I dial the phone that like whoever picks up is going to be a prick, right? And their manager is going to be even bigger, empty suit, and this is all going to go bad for me. Like, I just feel like that's normal. Like, we're expecting those things. So when you finally see somebody that's worth a damn and engaging and, customer forward, it's super refreshing. It's like, whoa, let me just stop. Like, let me just admire this piece of art that I just witnessed. Like, even if you go to a restaurant and the host, like, acknowledges you and treats you like you're special and seats you in a, like, oh, where do you want to be seated? Is it by the window? Is this under an AC duct? Like, whatever. Like, that's so easy. It's so, like, for people like you and I that are highly dependent on customers and creating value in every situation we are a part of, it's a no-brainer for us. But we're not getting a lot of that back. At least I'm not. I don't know what your experience is, but I just feel like the customer service side of business is completely lost on most people. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe like boomers and Gen Xers do this better than, millennials and I don't know what all the generations are, but
yeah, I don't know what the
younger people versus older people, for whatever their deficits are online and social media and technology, maybe they make up for it in some inflection in their voice or customer service. Now, there are young people that do this very well and at a high level. I'm not going to paint everyone with a broad brush, but I'm just super bummed with customer service these days. Like, you're talking about a climate where we're about to have another recession, a 2008-esque recession, right? We're already kind of in it. You got to differentiate yourself somehow. You can't just be like, well, this is my product and you're going to buy my damn product because you need my product. And I don't care how it makes you feel. And I don't care what remorse you may have for buying the product. Like, do you feel this? Is this something you feel on a daily basis?
So I got a couple of questions for you. Was this something that you saw prior to COVID, or is this exacerbated by, because I think COVID has exacerbated this, because I do agree with you. And I think people being cooped up at home and working from home and the added stress has definitely worn a lot of people thin. For example, most of the places that you call used to be call centers. Well, I believe for a good majority of them, now those calls are getting rerouted to like the people's homes. So like they have the whole home scenario that they're dealing with on top of trying to solve whatever problem that you're bringing it to the table, right? The reason that you are communicating with them. So I do think in the short term, I think COVID is playing a role. I see people have very short fuses now, really significantly, like, whereas before maybe there could be a dialogue, or like people just pop real quick. And my sort of estimation or guess would be that the being cooped up, the uncertainty, the to a certain extent the fear is playing a role in that. Now, if we take it outside of COVID, because that's only 3 months, 4 months, right? I do think customer service, as things are becoming more and more automated, is becoming a lost art. The fact, for example, that I'm a phone person. I will pick up the phone and call you. You've seen this. I'll pick up and call. If I can't call, then I'll text. If I can't text, then I'll email, right? And so, but I know that a lot of people would rather just text or email. They don't want to have that interaction with you. They don't, and I think it has a lot to do with maybe the younger generation growing up behind a screen, because I think anybody I didn't get my first cell phone till like say 2001. And
Mm.
that wasn't a smartphone by any means. It barely made phone calls.
It was a dumbass
Yeah,
phone.
it was seriously, right? At times it made phone calls and sometimes it didn't even do that. Maybe you could play Snake on it or something.
Paperweight.
You're right, exactly. You could launch it at somebody, hit them over the head.
Yep.
But nowadays, everybody who's grown up with like behind the screen, there's a certain sort of barrier that you can literally, I mean, look at what I'm doing right now, right? You can create that barrier between you and the other person.
It's a great way out of an awkward situation. Like, let's say
Right.
you're in an awkward moment and there's two people fighting in front of you. It's a good thing
Right.
to, oh, I'm in the
Sure.
phone. Like, I'm
Yeah,
totally
I don't
engrossed in
yeah.
in the home screen that doesn't even have anything on it, like, just to get you out of the
like I'm just
argument.
trying to put my little password in, but yeah, that's
Right.
got my whole
You can't
attention.
even do that right.
So I do think that the customer service idea has kind of gone. I mean, for example, think about how much automation there is now. Like, you go to the grocery store, there might be one or two people at the checkout, and then everything else is done on your own. You pump your own gas. You don't really talk to anybody. You show up, you put your credit card, you leave. Maybe you might interact with somebody if you're picking something up, but like Postmates will just drop by and basically throw the food at you. Like, driving through, there's your food. Or when you're going through. And so I do think that human to human interaction is slowly being changed a little bit. And I think we're starting to feel that, because there are still some things that at the end of the day, kind of the scenario you posted, dude, I got to talk to you about my scenario with my kid. I got to talk to somebody about this. I can't just have a machine deal with me. So you're going to have to like hear my story, try to figure something out. And, but I also think, coupled with that, critical thinking, like solution-based thinking, not necessarily focusing on the problem, but like, okay, we understand we have this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are our options to try to make it better, to try to resolve it, to try to find something that'll make the client customer happy?
Right.
I don't think that those skills are necessarily being promoted or taught. And I think that's where the disconnect is. At the end of the day, I see this as a 9 to 5. And at the minute I clock out, that's it. I don't care anymore. I don't have to take any of that with me. Whereas with me and you, look at what I just said. I'm the Rolls Royce. What does that mean? That means I am available 24/7.
Yeah.
That means that if something does happen, I'm there for my client. If my client needs me to make the phone call, write the email, send the text, have the conversation, have the meeting, whatever it is, I'm willing to do it. That's sort of what I see as my responsibility and my job, and I take that very seriously. I don't necessarily know somebody who's working in a call center or who doesn't necessarily have that interaction. Everything's just done over the phone. Like, it's just some kind of discombobulated
but it's
voice.
everywhere though. So like it's all, even salespeople are bad at this now. Whereas like, so what you're saying is like your Rolls Royce model of you're a Rolls Royce broker, you're a Rolls Royce agent. That insinuates to me that you're dynamic. Like, it doesn't matter if, like you said, you'll put in an offer at 9 p.m. on a Sunday because it's the right thing to do and it'll get us ahead of the stack of everyone else who bids.
Right, exactly.
That's a dynamic situation. Like, you're doing dynamic things to make clients happy, which is in itself customer service. Like, nobody is willing to make the dynamic move anymore. I don't know if it's because they think they'll get in trouble or if it's because some like number cruncher in the back is like, well, when we make concessions, then over the course of the year we lose $11 million or whatever. If it's a $1 billion company, some of those concessions, like in hotels, people used to waive the service charge, and that's like $35 per person per night. And so every time you waive that, you're basically eating into the hotel's profit. But the thing that they don't consider when they say never ever for any reason waive a service charge is, well, what if you're trying to recover on a bad guest experience?
Right.
What if this person would have totally trashed you on Yelp and that $35 just saved the day? Or you understanding and empathizing with them and then saying, you know what, I'm going to waive your service charge and I'm going to comp your whatever. Like, maybe that $11 million a year over the course of a year was actually really well spent in keeping the ratings and the whole machine oiled to the point where somebody's not going to say, we're never coming here again because I just spilled out my guts to this person about how bad of an experience I had and they didn't give a shit and they just sent me packing because some guy in the back said, don't give away any money. I feel like that's where we're at right now. Is like, and with sales, like, I'm a sales connoisseur. I believe in the art of sales. I'm constantly looking for ways to improve my ability to sell and my ability to sell through the art of relationships, through the art of conversation, through the art of kind of taking down barriers and making people feel comfortable and emoting the things that, they emote to kind of pair with their personality. I mean, these are all sales, call them skills, call them tactics, call them whatever. Nobody knows how to do this anymore. It blows my mind. Like when I was working in audio visual, it was like, I'd have one of my top sales managers would go out and do a site visit with a client. They'd have a great site visit. They'd have rapport. They'd say all the right things. They'd be super knowledgeable, quick, sharp as a tack. They'd have the whole building figured out. And they'd get back to the office and they would put a proposal together. And it was this like 27-page long widget proposal of just all the shit that this show needs to have on it. But it's just a dumb proposal. Like if I'm the client, I'm like, think about what the client they had a great interaction with you. They think you're an expert. They love us, right? They love our brand. And then you're going to hand them some 27-page piece of bullshit with widgets on it that they don't know what it is. They don't know what this mic is from that one. They don't know why you need 20 amps of power versus 15. It's all bullshit to them. And then at the end, it's going to have an $80,000 price tag. Is that valuable to the client to do that? Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, that's what they need. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. I'm like, this isn't how we're going to do proposals anymore. Like this was early on in my hotel days. And it was like, this is how we've always done it. Why would we do it any different?
Oh, I love that statement.
I'm like, why would you do any different? Because I'm not going to sign this.
Yeah.
Look, put yourself in the client's shoes. Okay. Now go over there. I'm going to hand you this proposal and think about it from their perspective.
Well, let me pause right there. So I think that's the key right there. What you just said. I think it all boils down to that. If people are willing. So for example, we started our company because my mom had a terrible buying experience. She lost money on not even buying a home. She ended up not even getting the home, and she lost money. Mm-hmm. And so it was that prompted her to say, you know what? I believe that I could offer a better overall experience to this process that'll make the person on the other side happy, that'll be more efficient, and that will ultimately get the job done. And so that's really and honestly, I think that's where entrepreneurs come from. Entrepreneurs look at something and are like, why the hell are you doing things that way when there's so much easier over here? We can get much more profitable, much more efficient, much more whatever. And and the answer is, well, John, we've always done it that way. So why would you
that's
change,
like
right?
the worst thing to say. but it's true, because I'm like, okay, think of this, right? The next thing that you are going to hand this person that thinks you're great and thinks we're all squared away and we're the best thing going is just a daunting bullshit document. Like, you got lightning in a bottle right now. If the next thing you do is that, you just like the wind just knocked it, because we're going to be the most expensive ticket. Our $80,000 is going to be thrown in a stack with a 60, a 40, and a 20. So we better have the best damn proposal in that stack, because we're going to lose on account of price. So but this was the mentality that I kind of brought to that game, and that's why I was able to change the game so quickly. It was like, everything you do needs to be through the eyes of the customer.
Yeah,
like you have to sell it to yourself first. And I'm not saying the price tag is not what you're selling. The fact that this is the highest value thing that you could possibly deliver. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to break down the overall costs, and I'm going to explain the value in each item if you want me to. Or I could just show you the high ticket and say, we talked about this concept. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it costs.
What you're describing, if you were to, if you delve into like sales sort of philosophy, you're taking more of the educator approach. You're saying there's real value in what I'm proposing, and let's go through it together for me to be able to illustrate why it is that the 15 versus the 12, or the 20 versus the 15 amp, or this mic versus the other mic, right? When you know what's funny? When you provide people with a reason for why you're doing something, that automatically catapults what you're saying into like a different stratosphere. And it doesn't even have to be something logical. Like it could be something.
There's a study on this. They did a psychological study on this, where they had people, basically there was an office building and people were in line for coffee or water. I forget which one it was. And people would cut the line as a part of the study, and they would see, okay, well, what pisses people off more? So if you cut the line and you say nothing, everyone's pissed, right? That's like the control for the experiment. If you cut the line and you say something illogical, like, oh, my right foot hurts, so I had to cut the line,
it mitigates the anger in people by like 65%, like a good amount, right? It diffuses the situation almost all the way. If you say something logical, like, oh, you know, I got to pick up my son from school, he's waiting for me,
even better.
It diffuses it like 95%. So to your point, people just need a compartment to put that in their mind, and then it's okay. Like their anxiety level, their anger goes down. So
well, it's because you've shown them, for example, if I can articulate to you why using mic A over mic B will result in a better overall show, sound quality, and performance, all of a sudden now you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. He's thinking about me. He's thinking about like how this is going to go, as opposed to, no, you don't get it. If you don't choose mic A, I can't charge you $80,000. I really want to charge you $80,000, so you have to go with mic A. You know what I mean? But I bet you even that would probably fly, like we were saying, over not providing an answer.
Depends on the client and how much of a stickler they are for the bottom line. But so you were going back to say in sales theory, this is called what would you call it?
So you totally threw me for a loop, but at the end of the day, educating, like you're taking you're
right. But is there any other way to sell? Is my question. Like, what are the other tactics?
No, there is. Like,
because I don't sell any other way than look, I'm here to solve a problem, and I'm gonna be an expert, and I'm gonna be knowledgeable, and I'm gonna respond to everything that you ask me. And at the end of the day, if you don't choose me, I honestly feel like I couldn't have done any better. Like I gave you the roadmap,
but you can use fear, for example. Like you can manipulate people. Like, well, if you don't do it this way, like for example, there's a difference between me saying, "Hey, Joe, if you use this mic, your performance is going to be bonkers. People are going to love it. The sound quality is going to be fantastic." Let me flip it, Joe. If you don't use this mic, the chances of you having a good performance are nil. As a matter of fact,
sound like Bob Dylan.
You're going to sound like crap, and not only are you going to sound like crap, but you're going to look terrible. And the chances of you getting your next show are slim to none.
Well, so I mean, I would never sell like that, but like scarcity is a bit of a fear tactic, right?
Totally. That is. Well, I mean, it depends. What I just said earlier is 100% true. If you're competing against 10 offers, that's real. Like I'm not trying to scare you into anything. I'm just framing it in
honest.
reality.
But exactly. You know, as a salesperson, when you have scarcity, you know when to leverage it, right? You're not going to not tell a client that things are scarce because you know scarcity is a sales tactic.
Totally.
But it's also the truth. So you're serving your customer in two ways, and it's back to you're educating, right? So you're telling them like, look, from an expert standpoint who does this every single day, I'm telling you there's scarcity in the market. You can either believe me or not. I'm educating you. So I feel like, is there any other way to sell or serve customers than just to educate them? I mean, maybe there's an industry that I'm missing where I haven't had to.
I guess you could also just go like pure repetition, right? You just you literally just bludgeon them over the head to the point where like you've seen so many Pizza Hut commercials that when you think of pizza, it's not because it's the best pizza and it's not because it's the closest or anything. It's just the proximity to it has been so readily available. You know, it's just been over and over and over and over again. Then you think pizza and you're like, okay, Pizza Hut, whatever. I don't even know why I said Pizza Hut right now. I just thought that was the first thing that popped into my head.
I use this tactic when I'm the consumer, like in the case where like I'm trying to follow up on one of my son's medical things. It's like, finally I tell the person on the other end of the phone, like, I'm going to call you every single 3 hours. If you want to get rid of me, then just do whatever the shit I'm asking for, or give me an answer at least. If not, you're going to have to deal with my phone call, whether you ignore me or not, every 3 hours. Like, I'm not going away.
Well, I mean, okay, so here's another tactic though. So if we're talking strategy, one of the things that I use, so as an attorney, I always have like the honey and then like the hammer, right? So you can go one of two ways. You can appeal to somebody or you can threaten somebody. Those are the kind of the two tactics that I deploy. And so I'm big on the honey. Like, so if I was in your shoes, this is how the call may go. You know, I call you up and I say like, look, Joe, I really need your help. Like before we even get into this, can I have 3 minutes of your time? I really need to frame sort of where I'm coming from. I've been on the phone now with 10 different people who've told me 14 different things. The reality is I have yet to get to somebody that can actually help me. And what I'm looking for is help because of these reasons: my son, my situation, my money, whatever it is. Yeah. So what I'm really looking for, are you the person that's going to be able to help me? Do you think you can? When you appeal, instead of being like, you're going to help me because you have no other choice because I'm here and I'm not going away. When you appeal to them and say, look, I'm really coming to you. Now, this isn't to say that this always works. That's why I have the hammer as well. But the idea is because yeah, exactly. That sometimes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How many honeys are you going to run before you pull the hammer?
But I do a lot, actually. I give them the opportunity, and it's only because after doing it so often, I find that it actually really does work. People, at the end of the day, like you said, people are still people. There's still somebody real on the other side.
Some of them are cyborgs. So I mean, I'll give you this scenario, right? So you're me, and you call the person that you need to help you in this whatever the conversation is, and they answer the phone. They're like, Bob Smith from blah 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 medical group. I'm pulling the hammer out. Like, I'm not going honey on Bob Smith. He's a dickhead already. I can already tell he's at the end of his day. I'm not honeying this guy to death.
So, for example, do you ask Bob how his day's going? So, like, the first thing that I say is,
answer the phone like that. I don't care. He's the guy who's trying to serve me. I'm the customer.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't approach it that way. I would be like, hey, Bob Smith, how's your day going? I bet you if you did that, you would totally ironic. You would break. No, because here's the thing. Okay, another sales strategy. You're breaking their pattern. Bob Smith is used to people getting on the phone and yelling at him for it. Bob Smith, your invoice is wrong. Bob Smith, the service was terrible. Bob Smith, I hate you. Bob Smith, Bob Smith, Bob Smith. But if all of a sudden you're like, Bob Smith, how's your day going, bro?
What's up, homie?
They'd be like, what? I'm like, yeah, man, what's going on? How are you doing over there? What's the weather like over in Minneapolis?
I disagree. Don't take my kindness for weakness, Bob.
But it's not. No. But here's the thing. It's not weakness because you always frame it from the perspective of, like, Bob. Like, I'm asking you for help because at the end of the day, I need your help. And I know that we can go about it in a variety of different ways, but it would really help me out if you saw me as a real human being. And I'm telling you, like, because there's a power in breaking the pattern. If somebody is just getting hammered all day and all of a sudden you just simply ask them, like, dude, how's your day going? Like, what's the weather like over there? You're like, oh, this is because, depending on the call center, this is John Case over in Scottsdale. Oh shit, Scottsdale, you must be melting over there. See your reaction. That is exactly.
I'm laughing because you're right, and I hate that you're right. But, like, I'm a grizzled veteran at this, and I'm telling you, the hammer works just as well.
Oh, it does. No, it does. But
trust me, I'll go honey. Like, I'm a patient person. I'm a nice person. I'll go honey more than other people. Let's say my wife, but she's more hammer than honey. She's like, hammer, I'm more honey than hammer. But when you go through these situations so often, you're like, I know who to. I could tell by the inflection of your voice and the first 5 words you say to me if you're a honey. If you're going to get the honey or the hammer. If you're trending one way or the other. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I pull out the hammer on some.
Well, try it. Let's do this.
Innocent bastard.
Okay, so let's put this on wax. Try my strategy because I'm telling you, and it's come over years. So, for example, you wouldn't think that I would deploy this in this particular arena, but it's actually fairly effective when you're talking to collection agencies. Like,
well, I was going to say, from a lawyer's perspective, actually, this gains merit to me because you got to be surgical in your approach.
100%.
Your profession already has the weight that you need. Like, if you're just calling as some schmuck, it's a little bit different than when you're calling as, John Case, the lawyer or whatever.
But see, for example, like that I may not even lead with that. I may just be like, hey, I'm John and I need your help. And it's like, okay, you're not going to help me.
Patient.
Well, then, because like I said, it's sort of it's a developed strategy over time of trying different things, and it's mostly dealing with, like, I'm telling you, like, in our office we call it playing the game. Like, if you approach it as a game, right? You're playing the game, and
everything's a game.
And so that when you're going to call, you're going to come up against challenges because the game is you are supposed to make it difficult for me, and my job is to overcome that.
Is so that the game?
That's the game. That's the game. At the end of the day, that's the game. Like,
I hate the game.
And
the player.
And the player. But that's the reality, right? Like, the reality is I'm going to come up against somebody who on a daily basis is just bombarded with negativity. I'm telling you, man, having worked in those call centers, like, ever so briefly, of having to answer phones all day, it's not fun. It's not fun.
It's like the DMV employee.
And so it's one of those things where I would encourage you to do this. Try to meet them at your humanness. So whether it's like, oh my God, you must be melting in Scottsdale, or how is everything going on? Or, oh, I heard your city's burning. What the hell's going on with that? It doesn't really matter what it is. When you break their pattern, immediately now you bypass their defense mechanism, because now you're talking to the real Bob Smith, not hello, this is Bob Smith from XYZ company. How can I help you? Now you're talking to real Bob, and Bob is telling you, yeah, man, it's freaking crazy. I can't believe they're making us come into work, COVID and this and that. And now all of a sudden you're talking to a real human, and that's when you appeal.
Bob.
And that's when all of a sudden you're like, hey, Bob,
I hate that you're right about this.
I got a question for you, Bob. Can you help me with this, man? Like, so far nobody. And by the way, when you can talk about finding your champions from the last episode, you can turn them into your champion, because when you say, Bob, can you be the person that can help me in your organization? Because I've talked to so many who have done absolutely nothing for me. Can you be that? Good. All of a sudden it's like, Bob's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Bob's empowered.
Exactly right. You've empowered Bob. And now Bob is willing to fight for you.
Because Bob's got a lame ass supervisor who should have empowered his ass long ago. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to fix Bob?
Maybe we can develop a whole series on how to fix Bob.
But I want to fix Bob. I want his supervisor to fix Bob. I got other people to fix.
We can sell him a program. But until then, as you're, for folks out there, as you're kind of slamming your head against the wall, kind of going over and over again, try that strategy. I promise you will have a different. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% effective, and I'm not saying you're not going to have to use the hammer, but I am saying it might start to position yourself in a little bit of a different mindset so that the person on the other side is a little more receptive. And sometimes you just need a little more receptive to actually break through and get to where you want to go.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So to distill everything that I was ranting about, and then I tried to fold it up into a sales discussion, is if you sell anything, I don't care what it is, it doesn't even matter. Think through your customer's eyes first. Like
100%.
You don't even have to have a far superior product. If you are relatable and you could think of every single situation that you're going to get in through the customer's eyes, you'll make great decisions and you will sell. Like, it doesn't even matter. You will increase sales if you can change your mindset to, what is the person across from me feeling, thinking? How will they react when I do this? How will they view this when I send it to them? How is my voice being inflected when I communicate with them? If you can make those calculations, that's emotional intelligence. That is probably the sales tool.
I would say that
leads to high performers.
And honestly, based on where this conversation started, that is the cachet of the future. That is where you can make you, like, if you want to.
It's so rare. If you have that trait, it's amazing.
That's what I'm saying.
You're in the top 1% of human beings right now.
It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you can approach it with exactly what you just laid out, all of a sudden you will stand out like a unicorn. Why? Because everybody's like, what's up with this person? Like, why are they so different? And it's like you said, it's because all of a sudden they're coming, instead of being me oriented, I'm you oriented. And when I'm you oriented, I legitimately care about what you think, what you're trying to achieve, and how I can play a role in that. And all of a sudden that changes the whole dynamic, because all of a sudden it's like, wow, this person actually gets me, as opposed to, hey, Bob, Bob, are you there? Bob, hello? It's like,
well, by the way, this is not a sales thing. This is a all people thing, right? If you're a manager, a director, VP, the way you treat people is going to be, it's going to sum up your ability to get something out of these people. So it's not just a sales thing. Get things done, productivity, all these things are dependent on that. So so the only other thing that I wanted to focus on is this topic of just how we leverage our resources in life, right? And the show, we can use the show as an example, because I'll let you do the rundown because you did it so beautifully in pre-production. But our message to everybody is, like, never count yourself unable to do something, because there's actually a lot of ways, and this is like a networking thing, right? Half of the time it goes back to who you know and how good are your relationships. And this is why relationships are meant to be cultivated, because if you're actually good at cultivating relationships, you could call in favors pretty frequently, because every time you call somebody, it's not a favor. Sometimes you just call to say, hey man, I miss you. And, like the other day I saw somebody from afar and I wasn't able to, like, flag them down. And I just called them and I was like, hey, I saw you. Like, we were in the same place, but it's COVID and it's weird. And so I didn't want to, like, run up on you and give you a hug. So I'm calling you to say, like, hey, I miss you. And exactly. We chatted for 10 minutes, whatever. So let's do your rundown of, like, what resources we're using and kind of how we're producing a show now on multiple mediums for the most cost-effective model.
Right. Okay. Excellent. So one of the things that was brought to my attention in us doing this and us having our conversations was just how different things are now than they were even like 10 years ago, as far as people's ability to, if you want to do a thing and it's technology based, kind of like what we're doing, the opportunities are really out there for you.
The barriers to entry can be
so
relatively low.
Yeah, you know, when I was growing up, if you wanted to put on a show like this, you needed a production staff and a studio and cameras and lights and a producer.
That was the only way to do it.
And that was, and not just that, but then permission. There was a gatekeeper. Somebody was at a TV station or a radio station, or somebody was going to say yay or nay, and it was 100% based on, can I make money off of this? Can I monetize this in a way where it's worthwhile?
Super conventional. There was a clear blueprint. There was only one way to do it, and that was it.
And that was it, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, the technology starts taking off, and all of these new mediums become available. And so now, so just a quick rundown of how we put together our show, right? We use a Zoom program that is free. So this program that we're currently utilizing, it's a free platform that anybody could sign up and utilize to do their meetings, to run your own classroom, for example. You can put on a webinar.
So in the Excel document, there's a 0 in the first column, free.
Right, exactly. So the Zoom is free, right? Then I'm utilizing a camera that's attached to a computer that I already owned as a result of my other business, right? Same. So I was able to leverage my other business and utilize the camera there. Again, free. We were able to communicate through a medium that is free, YouTube, in order for us to upload these videos, totally free, right?
Matter of fact, if you get good at it, they'll actually pay you.
They'll actually pay you.
Post your shit. Yeah. Exactly. So it's actually the opposite of costing you money.
Yeah, exactly right. and YouTube isn't the only medium, right? You could have your own Instagram show. So at some point, hopefully we can leverage that. You can go on Periscope and use Twitter. That's free as well. You can, as far as
I haven't heard about Periscope in a while. Is that still a thing?
I believe it's still around. I think it's not utilized as much because, you know, Instagram and
I almost forgot about Periscope.
Yeah. So you have but as far as the execution, the mic had to pay for the mic, right? So the mic
we actually had to pay money for something.
We had to pay for the mic, and then the new website we're paying a domain, right? But you were the one that did the majority of the coding and did the majority of the production on that. So we were able to do that. So far we have whatever the website costs.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that is.
It's and then $12 a year.
$12, yeah. And then the mic was somewhere in the ballpark of like $60-$70 by the time it got from, you know, Amazon to here. Yep. So you're talking about for under $100, we've been able to produce, put together, tape, and push out a production. You know, we'll leave the quality and sort of what we put together to be criticized by others. But at the end of the day, it's a production show that we can utilize. Now we put it together using PowerPoint and some like Canva for our social media and stuff like that. Again, Canva free, PowerPoint. I utilize it in my real estate business, so I was able.
If you're a student, it's free. So,
if you're a student, it's free.
You know, through my MBA program.
Exactly right. So at the end of the day, as I'm going down each individual thing, the bigger macro point is this, guys. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you do have available. And all of a sudden you start realizing there's a lot of things at your disposal that if you really want to let the creative juices flow and let the world know who you are and what you do, you can do it. You can 100% do it. It's totally accessible, totally viable. This thing right here gives you access to the whole world. I'm holding up a phone for the folks that are on the podcast. I'm holding up my smartphone. Yeah, my Droid, right? So with this camera and the Wi-Fi, you have literal access to, you could broadcast to the world. You could put together something, shoot it out there. It could be seen by one person or it could be seen by tens of millions of people, right? So the idea is once you start thinking in that sort of wavelength, you begin to see that the sky really is the limit. Like we can, bringing it back to our podcast. I believe the app that we utilize to disseminate it into Spotify and Apple, I believe that's free as well, right?
Well, it's free for up to 5 gigs. So at some point, we're going to hit the threshold of we're going to have to pay for that. But I think it's a pretty moderate cost. It's like
exactly.
$12 a month or something.
Exactly. So the idea being that if you really are eager to do something similar to what we're doing, and if you are following along on our journey, I would encourage you to explore all of these different avenues because there's so many different things that you can have literally at your disposal that cost you nothing. And to your point, some of these platforms, if you get really good at them, will actually pay you. YouTube, for example, and whatnot. So the idea being, look at what you have around you and start trying to leverage it in your favor. And on top of that, your conversation on relationships, that's so So true. Once you start fostering relationships and start networking with people, you'll realize that other people can also help you achieve your goals as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you have your champions, plug in the other podcast, once you have your champions, all of a sudden you have these folks that are willing to do things to help you achieve your goals that you may not have ever thought about, but that they'll kind of come out of the woodwork and say, hey man, I see that you're doing this thing. How can I help you grow it? How can I help you make it better? How can I help you monetize it? How can I help? How can I help? How can I help?
Well, I told you that about the MacBook. I mean, I have a production partner, an event partner, that he's got all these studio MacBooks for his gigs, and he's sitting on like 9 of them, and he's not using them. He's like, dude, do you need a more hot rodded out machine to do some of your editing and some of your processing? And I was like, I mean, it couldn't hurt. Like, there's a MacBook is literally designed for that. So he's like, oh, why don't you just, I'll bring you one by next week and you can borrow it. Or the same guy that I was talking about, how I just called him and said, hey, I miss you. I saw you down the hall or whatever. He offered up his DSLR camera if we ever want to do like a studio version. So we have a full blown HD camera rig and tripod and all that. So it's obviously people are often willing to do things if you ask them. Mm-hmm. But the bigger moral of the story is, if you're just a decent person who waters the plants cultivates the relationships in your life, the literal and figurative plants in your life, you'll be in a great position. I mean, we do this all the time. We did it for our wedding. I mean, you were at our wedding. Mm-hmm. It was like, basically we paid a couple $100 for the church we got married in. We leveraged the reception venue for $0. Even the glassware and all that, like we bought it and sold it back to them. Like, we did all these things. A friend was a DJ. We had food catered locally. Like, we produced our whole wedding, which was an awesome night. Like, I don't think anyone could argue it wasn't a typical, if not better, wedding than an average for very, very cheap. Like, probably less than, I don't know, maybe $2,000, $2,500, something like that, which in the wedding budget world is insane. Unheard of. Yeah. This was 12 years ago, but I mean, it just goes to show you, like, relationships matter, and use your resources. Like, there's so many great ones out there, and you kind of have to know where they're at. Like, that's part of relationship building is like, oh, I know this guy who's a great web developer. Okay, well, when you need a website built, then you know who to go to. But if you don't ask the question, hey, what do you do? Like, what's your passion? Then you might not know that person's a great website developer, and you could, tap them when you're ready for that project. So, yeah, man, I feel like time went by super fast, but I think show 4 is coming to a close.
No, I agree. I would leave folks with this. Always try to take stock of what you have available. And if you can think creatively, that's where the magic happens. Honestly, and especially because once you start doing it, all of a sudden you begin to see other things that are in and around you that could potentially help you with your execution and hopefully grow whatever it is that you're doing. So don't ever let your circumstances stop you from taking a stab at what it is that you want to do. For us, it was kind of putting this little show together and seeing if we can get it off the ground and seeing if we could actually do it. And so on. And kind of the challenge was at the beginning, like, can we actually do this? Let's try ahead and do it. So definitely focus on what you have available, nurture those relationships, and then that's where the real magic will happen.
Well, for this year, I mean, this is obviously, there's a lot of terrible things that have happened this year, but for me, the gift that I'm going to walk away with in 2020 is like, I've been more creative in the last 4 or 5 months than I ever have in any juncture of my life, in my career. I've learned new processes. I mean, I could have never built a website in February of this year. If you would have said, gun to my head, go build a website, I would have been like, I guess I'm going to get shot then, because I don't know how to do that. But I've since built two or three websites, obviously building the show up, building my business up, registering a business, getting all your finances and taxes and software and all that stuff lined up, learning new things in a way that I've never at a speed that I've never done before, for a variety of reasons. I mean, that's the gift that I'm going to walk away with. I'm going to walk into 2020 with a heavy tool bag of things that I didn't have when I walked into, when I walk into 2021, I'll have a heavy tool bag of things I didn't have when I walked into 2020. Yeah. So, we'll leave you with that, man. Great show. And we'll be in the podcast world now. So check us out on all your podcast mediums. But I'll let you do the sign off.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch the show or listen to the show in whatever medium you decided to consume this. We do appreciate you right along on this journey with us. Don't forget, our new handles are at the Gas Up Podcast. right?
Yeah, at the Gas Up Podcast and
at the Gas Up Podcast,
the Gas Up Show.
The Gas Up Show. We'll make sure we include that in all of our, tags, monikers, all that stuff. But don't forget to leave a comment or a like if you guys do like the show. And with that, we'll see you on episode 5.
That's right. Take care, y'all.
Adios. Bye-bye.